Hi everyone and welcome to another crochet tutorial. Today we're going to be making this cozy, easy to crochet sweater perfect for all day wear. This sweater is perfect for beginners and the written pattern is available in all sizes. I will be making this sweater in size medium, but don't forget to check out the free written pattern with all the other sizes in the link below. For this project, we'll only be using basic crochet stitches, so if you're a beginner, this is a great project to start off with. For this pattern, I'm using a really soft and shiny acrylic yarn by Big Twist Shine in the color Coral. I'm using a bigger hook size for this project in 6 millimeters, which will give it a looser finish. And you'll also need some stitch markers, a tapestry needle, as well as your tape measure and a pair of scissors. To start our pattern, you'll need to gather your size and work the number of chains you will need for the front and back panel as one piece. I will be making 260 chains for size medium. So go ahead and work a slip knot. You'll yarn over and drop a loop. Yarn over and drop a loop to start your chains. Once you've completed all your chains, you should have a really long set of chains. Now, to start the next row, you'll need to chain once more. And for the next row, you'll yarn over, insert your hook into that second chain from your hook. You'll drop a loop. You should have 3 loops on your hook. You'll yarn over and pull through all loops. This would be your first half double crochet stitch. Now you'll be working half double crochet stitches into each chain all the way across. On your last stitch, you'll work your last half double crochet stitch and you'll chain 1. This turning chain is not considered a stitch. For the next row, I want to create a knit-like stitch row, and as you can see here at the top, this is where we would normally insert our hook, but to create the knit-like effect, you will need to go through the 3rd loop, which is this horizontal line here at the bottom of the stitch. This will be considered your half double crochet through the 3rd loop. Now, in order to do that, we'll yarn over. You'll insert your hook through that bottom horizontal loop. You'll draw up a loop, yarn over and pull through all loops. And this will be considered your half double crochet through the 3rd loop. Now we'll be working this stitch into every 3rd loop all the way across, and I'll meet you back here once we're done. On your last stitch, you'll just work the half double crochet through the 3rd loop as usual, and you'll chain 1 and turn your work. On the right side, you should be able to see the knit-like row that you just made. It looks almost like a row of chains. And if you notice your rows beginning to curl, that is as expected. Now to start the next row, you'll want these 2 loops to be the chain stitch at the front. In order to do that, you'll be working a half double crochet stitch only through the back loops of each stitch. You'll yarn over, insert your hook only through the back of the loop. You'll drop a loop, yarn over and pull through all loops. And by working through the back loops of each stitch, you're actually pushing the V-shaped stitches to the front, making it a prominent knit-like stitch that we're aiming for. Now go ahead and work this back loop half double crochet stitch all the way across. Once you've completed the 3rd row, you should have a pattern sequence like this. You will be repeating rows 2 and 3, which is a half double crochet through the 3rd loop and back loop half double crochet stitch, for a total of half the width you are planning to make. I will be making a total of 28 rows for size medium, and we'll come back to work on the neckline split. So I've just completed all my 28 rows, and as you can see, the pretty knit-like stitch pattern across the entire body panel. Yes, you will have a very long body panel and it will curl a little bit along the edges, and that's fine. Now you'll place a stitch marker in the middle of the entire body panel's length. Next, you'll measure the length of your neckline. Mine is 7.5 inches or 19 centimeters, and place a stitch marker on both ends. You'll fold your work in half, and from your last stitch, you'll work the next row all the way across until the stitch marker, and then we'll be working the same number of chains as the entire length of the neckline and join through the third stitch marker. So depending where you left off, here I'll be working through the third loop. So I'll be working my half double crochet through the third loop on this row all the way across until the stitch marker. Once you've worked all the way up to the stitch marker, you'll now be working the same number of chains as you have here on the first stitch marker and through the second stitch marker. Here I have a total of 49 stitches, so I'll be working 49 chains. Once you've completed all your chains, you'll continue working your half double crochet through the third loop into the stitch after the third stitch marker. So here I'll just continue working my half double crochet through the third loop all the way across, and I'll also be working my way all the way back up until I'm back at the chain row, and I'll meet you back here once we're there. So here I'm at the chain row. Instead of working your back loop half double crochet stitch, you'll just work a regular half double crochet stitch into each chain. And once you've completed all the chain row, you'll work your half double crochet back loop stitch all the way across, and you'll continue working the remaining number of rows as you did on the left side to finish up the right side. And once you're done, just bind off and you should have a really long rectangular piece that looks like this with a slit in the middle. Now let's go ahead and work on the sleeves. You'll work your slip knot and work 33 chains. Once you've completed all your chains, you'll chain once more to start the next row. We'll be working a half double crochet stitch into the second chain from your hook. So you'll yarn over, insert your hook, draw up a loop, yarn over, and pull through all loops. This will be your first half double crochet stitch, and you'll be working a half double crochet stitch all the way across. For the sleeves, we'll be working the same pattern as we did on the body panel, which will be half double crochet through the third loop as well as through the back loop. So I'll be working a total of 34 rows for size medium to complete the sleeves. Once you've completed all your rows, do not bind off just yet. You'll pick up your working yarn and we'll be working on the cuffs along the row side. So from our last stitch, you'll chain one and turn to the row side. Into that first row, you'll work a very loose single crochet. Here's a pro tip. If you're not sure where exactly to insert your hook, just insert your hook as far as a single crochet stitch should be, while ensuring that your stitches are not too tight. For this row, you would need to have loose single crochet stitches. Now once you've completed all your rows, you'll chain 10 to start the cuffs. Now I'll turn my work and I'll chain once more to start on the cuffs row. For the first row, I'll be working single crochet stitches, so go ahead and insert your hook into the second chain from your hook. You'll draw up a loop, yarn over, and pull through 2 loops. That will be your first single crochet stitch. You'll continue working 10 single crochet stitches all the way across. Once you've reached that last stitch, you'll work 2 slip stitches onto the sleeves row. like so. Then you'll turn your work in one direction, preferably clockwise, without making a chain. This will ensure that you have an even edge every time. You'll skip 2 of the slip stitches that you made earlier. You'll work a back loop single crochet stitch into each of the stitch across. Once you've reached the top of that stitch, you'll chain 1, turn your work clockwise, like before. You'll insert your hook into that first stitch through the back loop and work 10 single crochets all the way down. And we'll just be repeating the first and second row all the way across. Once you've completed all your cuffs, you should have a complete sleeve just like this. Now we'll be seaming the sides together. This is the front side where the knit-like stitches are. We'll be folding the sleeves wrong side out. Now we'll align the sides together, and it's always best to secure the sides with stitch markers. Now from the last stitch that we worked on, if you do not end your last row at the bottom of the cuffs, just bind off and drop a loop. But if your last stitch is at the bottom of the cuff, you'll just pick up that loop like so, adjust the cuffs together, and you'll insert your hook into both pieces through the first stitch, and you'll work that single crochet. You'll continue to single crochet both pieces together through each stitch all the way across and bind off. And once you've completed your sleeves, just turn your sleeves right side out and go ahead and make a second sleeve. Now place the body panel wrong side out and measure 7.5 inches or 19 centimeters from the fold down. You'll place a stitch marker to mark that spot as well as along the sides to secure both pieces together. Now you'll turn your work to the side and we'll be seaming the sides together. Now go ahead and take your yarn and you'll insert your hook at the bottom of the body panel through the first stitch of both pieces. You'll drop a loop, chain 1 to secure. Now you'll just go ahead and single crochet each stitch of both pieces together all the way across until you've reached the stitch marker at the underarm. Do not bind off once you're there. Once you've already seamed up the sides, you'll take your sleeve and making sure that the sleeve is right side out and the fold is parallel to the seam side. Now you'll slip the sleeve's armhole side through the body panel with the cuffs facing the neckline. Next, you want to place stitch markers along the corner of each side of the underarm attached to the sleeve. Now we'll pick up the stitch from when we were working on the side. And you now hold on to the sleeve and the underarm and work single crochet stitches on both pieces all the way and around. And once you've worked your way all the way and around, you'll just work one slip stitch into that first stitch that you made along the armhole. You'll chain 1 to secure and bind off. Now that you've completed one side of the sleeve, go ahead and work on the other side of the body panel by seaming up the sides and joining up the sleeves. Now let's work on the collar. You'll arrange the body panel right side up and insert your hook into that 5th stitch from the bottom of the neckline on the right side, and you'll draw up a loop. You'll chain 1 to secure. Now you'll work 5 half double crochet stitches while carrying along that excess tail along the neckline. Next, you'll skip the middle row and work 2 slip stitches onto the left side of the neckline. You'll turn your work in one direction, preferably clockwise. Now you'll skip the 2 slip stitches that you made earlier, and you'll work a back loop half double crochet stitch onto that first stitch and throughout the next 4 stitches. You'll chain 1, you'll turn your work again in the same direction. On the next row, you'll work a back loop half double crochet into each stitch. And once you've reached the bottom of the neckline, you'll skip 1 stitch and work 2 slip stitches again on the neckline. And you'll turn your work. You'll skip that 2 slip stitches that you made earlier and continue working the back loop half double crochet stitches into each stitch. So from here, you're basically repeating the last 2 rows all the way across in the round. Now go ahead and work on this row, and I'll meet you back here once you're at the center back of the body panel. Once you've worked your way through the center back of the neckline, you'll see this middle row here, which you'll just treat as a regular stitch row, and you'll work the collar as usual. So here I'll be working my stitches along the collar. And once I've reached that middle row, I will skip that row and work my slip stitch into the next stitch as usual. So from here, you'll just continue working on the collar along the neckline, and I'll meet you back here once you're back at the front of the collar. So I've just completed working on the collar all the way to the front until that last visible stitch, as you can see here, which is basically on top of that first row of the collar that we made earlier. Now, in order for us to complete the collar, we'll be working 2 more rows on the first row of the collar. So go ahead and continue working on the collar. Here I'll be working my 5 stitches. Now, once I've completed all 5 stitches, I'll skip the first stitch of the 5 stitches on the collar, and I'll insert my hook into that second stitch of the collar, and I'll work a slip stitch. And again into that third stitch and work a slip stitch. I'll turn my work. I'll skip the 2 slip stitches and work my 5 stitches all the way up, and I'll work my 5 stitches back down. Once you've completed that last row, just go ahead and work that 2 slip stitches on the bottom of the first row. Chain 1 and leave a long tail for seaming the sides. So now you can see you have a flap at the front of the collar. You'll just fold it in front of the left side. Go ahead and place a stitch marker to secure the right collar. Now I've already threaded my tapestry needle, and I'll just sew the sides with a simple whip stitch. And once you're at the top of the row, just go ahead and weave in the excess tail. Now the last thing we need to do is to work on the bottom edging. We'll turn our work bottom side up and facing the right side. Here I'm working along the seams. So I'll insert my hook and I'll drop a loop. I'll chain 1 to secure. I'll chain 5. I'll chain once more to start the next row. Now into the second chain from my hook, I'll work a half double crochet and 4 more half double crochets along the chain. And just like how we worked on the collar, we'll skip 1 row. We'll work 2 slip stitches. I'll turn my work clockwise. I'll skip that previous 2 slip stitches and I'll work a half double crochet through the back loop on each stitch. I'll chain 1. I'll turn my work clockwise. I'll skip 1 row and I'll work 2 slip stitches. I'll turn my work clockwise and I'll just repeat row 2 and 3 all the way and around. So go ahead and work on the bottom edging and I'll meet you back here once we're done. On your last row, just make sure that your last stitch is exactly next to the first row without any gaps. Now you'll fold the bottom edging wrong side out and sandwich them together like this. And you'll insert your hook through the back loops of both rows and work a slip stitch. So basically, you're working on the inner loops of the front and back stitch. And once you've completed all your slip stitches, chain 1 to secure and bind off. And there you have it, your knit-like crochet sweater. By focusing on basic stitches, simple construction, and positive ease, this pattern ensures success for first-time crocheters. I hope this tutorial was helpful, and if it was, please do give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so yet. Happy crocheting, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.